Hello and good morning. Welcome to the Weekly Jargon. I am Jose Rodriguez.
And Rohi Zachariah.
And today, Rohi, we have an interesting topic, right, regarding AI. Why don't you lead us off and tell us what this topic is about?
Yeah, so today we're just talking about how AI has kind of moved essentially from science fiction into our everyday lives and kind of the transition, especially here in the Central Valley, and how we use it and where we hope to kind of go with it, and maybe some of the side effects that are going to come about with AI and jobs and job creation or possible job loss. So.
Well, you know, one of the things that we talked about not only at our city council, but some of the shocking news that took place, and I think we talked about this not too long ago, was the mass layoffs that we have.
Yeah.
And I mean, although we can't say it's due to AI, it was more due to demand, you know, the wine industry. But again, as you start seeing AI become more efficient, not only in the way even autonomous vehicles and, you know, how it replaces certain jobs out in certain fields, manufacturing, robots, what have you, call it what you may, but it certainly has a detrimental impact here in our communities. And moving forward, I wonder what our world will look like 10, 20 years from now. And I can tell you personally how that's kind of restructured the way we do business, especially in the mortgage tax business or any type of service that you provide that required people to come in, fill out paperwork. That's pretty much vanished overnight. And the remote setting that we see now has really is beginning to take effect on the commercial space, especially when it comes to office space. Not sure if you've seen any impact in your industry.
Yeah, so it's kind of funny because you would think of guns and regulations and kind of the way we do our paperwork, we would be kind of AI proof. But if if you kind of look at things like, for instance, buying a suppressor, and obviously we can't have them in California, but out of state, you can go now to a kiosk, no human input required. You put your information in, and a couple days you get the report back, and you just go pick up your suppressor. And I know that there, obviously for us, there's certain regulations because they want to have some of that checks and balances of a human making sure that, whoever's buying this particular item is safe. But who's to say you just have an AI thing watching the purchase or the person coming in doing the paperwork, and right there's maybe doing a background check on them and be able to check on the people in the room with them. And, so it's not too far-fetched to kind of say, like, I don't really need people to buy a gun, really,
Yeah, and it's scary. And if we want to bring it down even to a more, like, just here local impacts, for example, and you mentioned kiosk, right? And you start seeing that kiosk mentality everywhere. Well, not mentality, you start seeing it, how it's developed. For example, the fast food, right? And I'll take one of our biggest fast food chains here now, McDonald's, right? For example, when you go in there now, you have an option. And I think as more and more folks get comfortable with technology and not having to interact with someone, that social aspect that makes who we are as a society, right? Yeah. Now you can go up to this kiosk and order your food. Again, everything is digital, so there's no need for you to pull out cash. They may have a cash option there, but it seems like we're being almost trained in a way to go through this process, bag our own food. When you go to the checkout now and self-checkout, that's probably the best thing that's happened, at least for me, because who wants to wait in line 10 minutes before the cashier has to check something and say, hey, check on item such and such, right? Yeah. Oh, man. Yeah. And you've been there before. But again, you see this happening in our fast food industry. You see it happening in our grocers locally here. Yeah. So it is having an impact on how we just run business every day. Yeah. And I think it's going to have an impact when it comes to jobs, or we're going to have to transition to some type of job that supports that type of technology.
Yeah, and what you're looking at is, if you're anybody, I don't think anybody at this point should say I am AI proof, or I'm not vulnerable to either a reduction or replacement. It's like you said, you have to really go and tell yourself, okay, McDonald's. McDonald's has the technology is already in place to fully automate the entire process. And California knows that. California stepped in and basically said, we're going to penalize you if you do this. And that's really the only reason they haven't done it so far. But, you know, it's asking yourself, who benefits at the end of the day? Is my burger going to be cheaper? Probably not, right? Because McDonald's is still going to charge the same amount. They're not going to say, hey, by the way, you know, we're able to save all this money, and, you know, now instead of it being a $10 hamburger, it's going to go down to a $4 hamburger. They're going to keep making money because they can keep making money. People are going to pay that price. They're going to keep doing it. So it's asking yourself at the end of the day, who's going to benefit from all this, right? Is it just the corporate? Is it just the corporations that at the top of the level, because they're just eventually, I can get rid of everybody. I only need my accountant. I don't need my manager, because they're just managing robots, right? And maybe I'm not even managing that. I'm paying a company that set up and monitors the robots, right? And maybe there's just like a handful of people who are just raking in money. But also the long term is saying, where does that money come from? It comes from people having work. They don't have work now. And I think it comes back to that full circle of this, where we're getting pushed about this guaranteed income, because that may have to be the future, because you can't pay for these items if you don't have money coming in, because there's no jobs to have.
Yeah, and that's pretty interesting. I know that's been in circles, right, of conversation over the last couple of, I want to say maybe a decade or two. I've heard that universal basic income, the idea of it, you know, especially during presidential elections, I think back in 2016, I think prior to that. But that could potentially be a reality, because what would you do with the displacement of so many jobs? How would you look after a nation that is solely dependent on this? And then what does that mean when you're having to, you know, displace these folks that were typically paying into certain social programs like Social Security and Medicare? What does that mean for government, right? Do you become more centralized, a more strong government, and saying, well, let us take care of this for the people, not only through the UBI, but what about, you know, again, the constant fight today is healthcare.
Yeah.
And then before you know it, it'll be something else, right? Social Security. How do you deal with the aging population? How do we deal with Medicare? How do we deal with all these things? And I mean, as we look at AI, maybe AI can be more efficient. Maybe AI can be more efficient. And, you know, I hate to use the word Doge, right? Is it the Department of Government Efficiency, right? And I think the idea behind that really had some merit. It was just the way it was implemented, how fast it was in there. I think, though, it does have some weight in it. And I do believe that if you allow a very neutral AI to look at certain inefficiencies that we have in certain systems, you would uncover that there is a lot of waste, duplication of services that could potentially save, I'm not going to say trillions and billions of dollars, but a pretty high amount of money that could potentially be, you know, maybe transition into something else that can help our society today, right?
Yeah. But again, where does it end? And that's and you know, you watch the good futuristic movies, and AI at some point is going to have the realization that we're the problem, we're the inefficiency, right? Like, you know, that we're the lazy, it can do it better, and it will do it better. And why do we need you? And, you know, you get down to that rabbit hole of, like I said, like, why are we here? I mean, everything can be just automated. A robot can do that job. And then what do I do with the rest of my life? You know, what's my purpose? And that's where it starts getting down that scary rabbit hole of, do we have government policies that says, no, you have to hire people. No, you must have so many humans in your business. You know what I mean? Like, it's you don't want to think that way, but at some point you almost have to enforce the inefficiencies, or else society itself just kind of comes crumbling down to where really you don't need anybody, because at some point, it may be far off. It could be, like you said, maybe 10 years, maybe 15 years, or maybe sooner, to where the robotic revolution comes about. And, you know, it starts like they're trying to push right now this robot assistant. You know, they seem nice. They'll help fold your clothes, and, you know, we already have my little Roomba goes around and cleans my floor, you know, but how much to we're just like, well, you know, it's also just doing your job, and it's just doing everything for you, and we don't need you. And here it is. You know?
Yeah, and it kind of it reminds me of when I see these EVs when it comes to like scooters and bikes and right the e-bikes, right? And I mean, I thought the whole purpose was to try to get exercise.
Yeah.
I mean, it's great that the mobility piece of it is that, hey, I no longer have to burn any fossil fuel. I can take the battery and it can take me from here to there and a lot quicker. Now,
Sure.
if you wanted to add the component of exercise, it has that dual platform where you can use either just the battery pack, which is some assistance to your pedaling, or you can just, pedal your way through. But either way, it is shaping the way we are starting to look at AI. Mm-hmm. One of the questions that I saw through a TikTok video, and I know I watch TikTok here and there, but it just a question that said, have we really progressed over the last 100 years? Mm-hmm. And technology and advancements in technology, I think we have. But as humans, have we really progressed in the way we look at life, mm-hmm. right? And the answer that they provided in this here was, well, it's not that we've progressed, we've just learned how to do things faster the same way. You've learned how to be, whether it was greedy, whether it was this, and they brought up these things and it made you think a little bit, well, I mean, let's think about it. How have we progressed as a human race to try to get ourselves in better situation? Have we really? Yeah. And I mean, we've been good at trying to find efficiencies to make things go faster, and progress in that fashion. But have we really reached that peak of like, this is the best of human life we could ever have? Yeah. And of course, that'll be a debate back and forth, but it was interesting how that question was posed because it made you think and said, well, if you think about it, I mean, technology-wise, yes, we have. But those technologies are utilized to advance a lot of the things that we already had. I mean, it wasn't progressing ourselves to get to a better place, meaning, I mean, this utopia of a place where all humans live very happily, right? I don't think that's the case. I think there was other factors that were missing in that question because I think it was somewhat vague because they didn't take into account human nature, right? And I think when you take that into account, well, I mean, that's just human nature and the way we behave, right?
Yeah, and I think, again, going back to movies, if you look at the future, everybody looks great, everybody's fit, everybody fits into that same one-piece matching uniform that, when they're on their spaceships. But the reality of us here today is that, we're overweight and we're, like you said, the e-bike is a perfect example, right? Like they started off with a little bit of assistance. You want a bike ride, but you need a little help getting up the hill. So you get these, little assistance, and then it turned into more assistance, and to now it's just electric. Why even? There's no bicycle part anymore. Just push the button and go. But that's just who we are, right? I mean, that's like you said, human nature says efficiency is about me basically getting more with doing less, right? So I can go up that hill, and all I got to do is push a button and go. So that's kind of how we're built, The side of it, like you say, as a human, like the race and everything, how we progressed. I think that through science we are. I mean, definitely we're living longer. I mean, I know we're starting to slide back down in some of that, but some of us are living longer because that's what they want to do. They're exercising more. They're pushing the limits of science in that biological aspect. But you and I aren't really like, going down to it and saying like, maybe I shouldn't have had this cup of coffee. Maybe, and micro scaling my life to say I'm going to have this much vitamins. I'm going to eat this much food. I'm going to exercise this much time. We're just enjoying life and understanding, am I happy? Like we've talked about before. Yeah, sure. I'm happy. This is where I want to be. AI is getting sold that the stuff I don't like to do is going to be done for me. And that's the part where, again, the sales pitch, they're baiting us with it, right, is, Jose, hey, guess what? You know what? Instead of having 5 hours of work, you're going to have like 30 minutes of work because you push the AI and it does your job. But what we're not getting told is that, like you said earlier, is at some point people are going to realize higher up that, what does Jose even do? That 30 minutes that he's even doing we can do for him, and we can also do it for everybody else. And that's the part we kind of got to figure out, like you said, is do we want that, or do we start already the resistance and saying like no more, like this is enough, and start putting up guardrails to kind of prevent the slide that's probably coming.
Yeah. Somehow I think we've already let the cat out of the bag.
No, it's, and 100%.
You know, and if we bring it back closer to home, like our Central Valley, right? And where is AI already showing up, right? Especially here in the Central Valley, right? Well, you talk about agriculture, and you talked about that micro scaling and what, right? So the precision irrigation systems using sensors, AI, and all that, right? We see that in drip systems. Not only that, but now satellite irrigation, stuff that are, you know, they're precise to what you want, right? The automated harvesting, you see that going drones, monitoring the health of crops so they understand to be more efficient, like you said. So laborship, right? Before it used to be people, human labor taking on these jobs, and now it's being replaced by a lot of the AI, robotics, and what have you. And you can talk about the logistics of it, Rohi, but even that, I mean, the trucks that we see coming through our corridors here are 99, and we talk about it because there is a safety component when you have such a mass population in California and you only have gaps where 2 lanes exist, and the majority of that of the traffic that's going through there, unless it's peak hours through you know, traffic hours in the morning where people are commuting, the majority is transportation of freight of goods that are coming through our docks and into whether it's Northern or Southern California. They're going through these corridors, and safety is an issue there, right? But now you start thinking, okay, if it's safety, what if we allow someone that's not human taking over on those trucks? How does that impact? What kind of accidents could we see, or is it more efficient? Could we see more efficiencies? Because again, robots don't sleep. Yeah. And a lot of the accidents could be neglect into service, deferred maintenance, or just lack of sleep. You know, so that's what kind of scares me, is that if that can replace, and to your point, microscaling, making sure that you're accounting for every single little action that could potentially go wrong, and you implement it into a system like AI, I mean, the risk goes down. Therefore, I mean, is it a better for our society, or I mean, there's a trade-off, because now you're losing all these jobs. That income come back into our communities, and you know, as a city, that we're very dependent of sales tax. Yeah. So your take on that?
I don't know. I can't see, you know, like 5 and 10 years from now, I just can't see where we're gonna, like you said, we're gonna say there is, like we keep using the word job creation. Like there may be a new type of job created, but I think when you're saying jobs overall, I think you're just going to see the steady decline of just available jobs. It doesn't make any sense any other way. And again, how that is going to be related is, again, if I don't have an income and I'm not spending the money, the sales tax is going to go down. So I don't know if it's going to be a full collapse or just a gradual understanding of things are just, you know, there's going to be less money circling around. The only thing you can do to kind of keep it going is, you know, like they've done with California, raise the minimum wage, because that's another way of increasing like taxes and stuff. Is, you know, you're working less hours, but you're getting paid more, so therefore we're gonna kind of get that tax revenue for you. Your hamburger was only $5 3 years ago, now it's $10. We're collecting more taxes based off that being $10 now. So I think there's ways to kind of prevent maybe the sales tax number from going down by just what they call inflation, or just you know, increasing just everything, right? You're getting paid more money, but you're also spending more money, so therefore you're getting taxed more money. Like that's one way to kind of keep it going, if there's just less people actually spending that money.
Yeah, and the one thing I think that people see is that they see it as a people don't understand how taxes work, right? People may see it, well, I pay such and such at the pump, I pay this for property taxes, I pay this for income taxes. But, you know, sometimes you forget about the invisible tax, which is the inflation. Yeah. And to your point, I mean, yes, you can increase the wages, but by increasing wages, you're also increasing the cost of goods. And those costs of goods are saying, well, I need more of that money because for the government, it's cheaper to print that money and pay off its debt. And that's typically the way this scheme works is, and I mean,
It's a scheme.
call it a scheme,
Yeah,
call
it
it
is,
whatever,
it is.
right? But I mean, that's how it works, right?
Yeah.
I mean, obviously, you haven't seen in the history of when we got off the gold standard where money has actually come back, reverted a different way. It's always growth because you're always trying to keep up with inflation. You're always trying to keep up with, the cost of doing business, whether it's government, what have you. You're having to add more money supply into our system that continues to grow our national debt. And before you know it, that debt service gets so big, you have to pay it down. How do you do that? Well, you create inflation.
Yeah.
And that's how you pay. You have more dollars to pay your debt a lot cheaper. And it's at the cost of you and I.
Yeah.
They'll promise that there's no taxes. Maybe not income taxes. Maybe not the taxes, and maybe you get these tax breaks. You may get the tax breaks in the IRS, especially for those that work overtime, tips. I mean, I'm doing these here now, and I'm seeing the premium. For those of you that don't understand how that overtime or tips works, is it's an added amount to your standard deduction to help you deduct the amount of your adjusted gross income so that you pay taxes on what's left over. But it's only the premium. It's the 1.5 times, right? So it's the half. That 33% of your overtime is what's deducted.
Okay.
And that is the amount that's going to help you. But in helping you that way, yes, it's going to help you. You're going to see maybe you're going to pay less in the liability. You're going to get maybe a small refund. But that refund, you already owe it when you're out there purchasing. Believe me, that's what's funny. Yes. It's not like it just magically appears. You can't, you're robbing Peter to pay Paul.
Sure.
It's not a, let's make this thing work somehow. It is helping your average American. It's the illusion that it's helping us. Yes, to some extent it is. But at the same time, Rohi, I think you start seeing more the cost of goods. Everything becomes so more expensive. Your premiums and insurance, your interest rates, financing. I mean, cars nowadays going crazy, $70,000, $80,000, where back then you could buy them for $20,000, $30,000. It's crazy how the price of goods have gone up.
No, and looking at, I had a conversation with one of the doctors yesterday actually about healthcare, and we were talking, this very topic about replacement and, how kind of where does he see things going, and his thing is because obviously they talk about that there's a shortage of doctors and medical staff and stuff, and he said it's a complete lie. There's a shortage because they want there to be a shortage, but we got on the topic again of saying can AI replace him? And he was saying right now in its current state, he doesn't think so because, the tools are there where you can plug in a person, doctor comes in or nurse or whatever, runs your symptoms, plugs into the computer and it comes out with a diagnosis. And he said most of the time it can work pretty well, but he said that it still misdiagnoses a lot of things. And so he doesn't fully trust it yet. But what he says he does is that he will do his own analysis and come up with the diagnosis, but he still throws it into AI to kind of see what it kind of comes back to, And, so he said, we're not there yet, but it's, again, the yet is the scarier part that, things that are very systematic like that, where it, like I was telling him, one of my cousins 20 years ago was trying to write these programs for the doctors to basically get rid of them, or not get rid of them, but more so reduce the need, right? Because if I have a cough and I have a headache and I have this and there's enough science, medical science now to kind of say this is your problem. This is what doctors go to school for, right? They have books and they learn to put the things, the pattern together to figure out, Jose, you have this disease, and then once we diagnose the disease, we know the drug to give you, right? So that's what AI is perfect for. That's what it strives for, is putting the pieces together that we couldn't normally see maybe as humans, right? And that's where, again, you say the medical profession, that's very easily, maybe not to replace completely, but instead of having
preventative care like that.
The hospital, here maybe needs like 10 doctors on staff. No, we just need the one guy to kind of just almost like the pharmacy does right now, where, they use AI to kind of check your prescription that you're getting to make sure that it's not going to interfere with anything, So the computer will kind of do some of that, but you still have the pharmacist comes and double checks to make sure, hey, wait a minute, I don't think you should be mixing these two drugs together, right? Like they may have maybe a little insight or maybe just a feeling that says, Jose, we're going to switch you off of this drug because I think you may have a side effect to it, right? And I think that's where doctors and healthcare are going to go, where we're just going to have that reduction of that, maybe that last human box, and it could be for insurance reasons, it could be for liability reasons, that says, this doctor checked the box, and if I die from it, we're going to have a finger to point at, versus, you kind of say, well, if the robot said I took it and I die, who do you sue?
Yeah, it's funny you say that, because I mean, let's picture this thing, right, Roy? And we saw it in a lot of the science fictions, whether it was these far out futuristic scenarios where I got a cut. You put me in this tube, and somehow it generates back everything that I've lost. But now look at it this way. I think you brought up a good point. Is your typical scenario is, okay, I walk into a hospital, whether it's emergency or what have you, a clinic, and there's a system that not only weighs me, blood pressure, my vitals, and other things that it may do to recognize what symptoms you have that can lead or direct you to say you may have a cold, a infection, a virus, therefore we're going to treat you with this. I mean, Teladoc is another way people are doing nowadays, based on systems. We look up online and find out, hey, I have these symptoms, what could it be? And 1,001 things can come out there. You don't know what you have. Before you know it, you may have cancer.
The WebMD.
Yes, WebMD, thank you. But I can see that. I could see how, because essentially, your annual physicals, your lab work, getting all that stuff done. I get my lab work now and I start studying it before I go see my doctor, because it tells me, based on the parameters of where you want to be, it tells me if I'm in good shape, if I'm not, my cholesterol, what have you. But I mean, when I go see my doctor, that's exactly, she regurgitates the same thing. Okay, you need this, you need this. Okay, well, I mean, I already know that. Right? Tell me something. But again, it's good. I think for me, it's good to know that I saw a doctor and she checked me, because it makes me feel better that someone there personally, not a robot, not some AI yet, right? I'm not there yet. But one thing that I want to get through is, what jobs will AI replace, so that we're kind of on track of what we're talking about today. But it's, like you said, repetitive administrative work, right? And we see that. Basic data entry, routine customer service, and we're seeing that also, like we talked about McDonald's and what have you, and some transportation roles. I've seen this not with the autonomous vehicles in San Francisco and these major metropolitan areas, buses. We're seeing it mainly with even with freight trucks, and not sure that they're out there already, but my understanding is that there's a couple of tests going back and forth. So jobs that'll be likely to grow are going to be the AI maintenance and operations, data literate roles across industries, healthcare, you talked about that, skilled trades. Obviously, I still think that welding and anything that's got to do with hands, that's
plumbers,
all that stuff is going to grow. So if you're looking to take advantage of it, I mean, and again, you don't want to go into these very prolonged school education certificates. We'll start looking at something that's going to be of a skill that's needed, especially in this world. Education, training, and human-centered services. Now, there's others, but I just wanted to kind of give you an idea, and tell us, Roy, the impacts that you may see here in the Central Valley, though, if we continue to see this pace of technology move.
I mean, being that Central Valley is heavy on agriculture and stuff, I mean, that's one of the biggest industries right now. As quick as they can, we're trying to reduce the human input, like you said. I mean, more autonomous vehicles monitoring and picking and, automating the entire process. So you're going to see that workforce reduce year over year, I would say. Obviously in the public sector,
that's our arena. How do you think that'll, I mean.
That's where, I think that's the 15, 20 year, when you look at some of these things like AI, for instance, running the courts, like, you just train AI on all these cases, and obviously they have that right now. That I know was reading up on one that it was trained for attorneys and lawyers and stuff to kind of use to kind of help them with their cases. But at what point do we again trust a computer to say, hey, it has no emotions, it's been trained on case law, you go present your case before it? I mean, obviously you can still have the 12 jurors if you want, but at what point we just say, hey, let's just let computers do the judging, you know what I mean? And,
Scary.
so I think, yeah, I mean, there's definitely a lot of those things where you say, I think there can easily be a reduction. Replacement, I don't know that yet, but reduction, of course. I think you can easily say, hey, instead of 2 of you, we need 1, or instead of 3 of you, we need 2. I think it's very easy in government and in most of these jobs where we can just say, we don't need you anymore,
No, and you're right in that case. And I'll give you a perfect example is when I was traveling to San Francisco, I had to stop by and pay. Well, you don't pay a toll no more. Now, these cameras that are very high-end cameras will pick up your license plate number, and with that, they'll track you down, DMV records, and they'll say, hey, you owe us $6 or whatever the toll is. Oh, and by the way, you crossed over to the fast track lane, so you owe me $22.
Exactly. Yeah.
But as a waiver, just pay us $2, right?
Exactly.
And I was like, I don't remember ever crossing that lane. I know that lane costs money, so I don't try to go there. So then I fought it. I said, wait a minute. So then I send my case through an email because I have to go through an email, and then because I went through the email, it came back and it dismissed it. Because I said, well, show me where I went in there. Because right now, what I'm looking at is a picture of a daytime, and you can clearly see the other lane that's divided there. So there's no way that I crossed over. And they dismissed it. But look how easy that is to say, here, and just pay me another $2 more. And I go, man, that's not right. That's not right. So again, it's reduced the amount of people that are at these tolls collecting money, but if you allow AI to do it and generate these citations and a bill collecting way, it's going to. I think there's going to be some inequities there because you're going to be doing this. Let me throw it out there, and whoever can respond to it, then I'll dismiss it.
Yeah.
But I'm more likely, higher probability to collect a little bit more money from you because I can show that you were. I go, I don't think that was fair. Well, at least it wasn't fine-tuned yet. And I'm not bringing it down. I'm just saying, at least my experience, I didn't think I crossed over. I argued it, and they dismissed it, and I just paid my toll. But these things come around, and I'm not, and to me, it's like, okay, I think to your point about the court system, then you would avoid due process in saying that I would get tried by my peers. And now you're letting a neutral, well, maybe neutral, but neutral to what, right? What does it learn? Have you really taken into account the emotional, piece of it that someone may present? Well, I don't have any emotions, so therefore I don't care. You violated, here you go, right? Whereas a judge may be more lenient and say, well, I see you're trying. I don't know. But I could see that. And it does reduce a lot of inefficiencies for sure.
Yeah, and I think we could see the baby steps, and I know we've seen some of it already as far as it might not be AI, but right now when you go through that McDonald's drive-through, they were playing with the idea that you're not actually talking to the person in the building anymore. You're talking to a call center. It's one call center maybe of 20, 30 people that are answering for all the McDonald's around the country or around the world or whatever. I think that is something that also you could see where you're saying government and that person behind the window, instead of it being a real person, just put a computer screen and you're talking to somebody, but they're in a different state or different country, and we don't have to pay them the minimum wage that we do here in California or whatever. We're paying them the federal minimum wage, which is half, or now. So maybe we're saving money, as a government, But I think you're going to see that's that slippery slide. Like I said, is at some point we're not talking to the person here, But then all of a sudden, we don't realize that AI has gotten so good about video generation that you're not even talking to a real human anymore.
Yeah.
You're talking to somebody you think is a human, and you're just kind of they're chatting along, and yeah, it's totally fake.
It's crazy how that's really increasing more and more. You start seeing more videos that you can't tell whether it's an AI generated or it's real. Someone has to point it out. Oh, by the way, look, this is something happening. Okay.
They got to watermark it because you can't tell anymore.
Well, I mean, at what point do you not watermark it, right? I mean, that's the scary thing about it. Well, before we end the show, we do want to just give out our condolences to some of the families that have lost some young lives here in our city. Over the weekend, I think we uncovered that there was some youth that unfortunately lost their lives on a high chase pursuit there. Also, a young student in our community had also lost her life, and our condolences go out to the family. Really not something that we want to hear locally, but we here at the Weekly Jargon certainly want to reach out and provide your deepest condolences to you and your family. Not sure if you want to add anything there, Rohi?
No, I mean, we've talked about the youth in the last couple of videos, and I think it's ever more strong that, that I think that we need to be looking out for them and helping them as much as we can. And life is hard right now. It's not
It is.
So.
And, Madera has all walks of life here, right? And we've always been that welcoming city, not so much politically, but letting know that students, adults, people with mental health issues or what have you, anybody within, that we support our community, we support our youth, and we continue to do that and tell them why. Society as it is, it's tough already, and especially for some youth, it's tougher. So let's just make sure that we continue to support them, support our schools, support our education, and support our city, more importantly. Yeah. And with that, Rohi, I think we're going to go ahead and wrap that up. We'll come back next week and bring you another exciting episode.